Devil May Cry's Vergil is one of the most polarizing characters in gaming history, and possibly the most polarizing character in Devil May Cry. And we have to think about this in terms of how Vergil shows us how to gain absolute spiritual power through his symbolic acts. Vergil, in his search for power, is a mirror of our search for spiritual enlightenment, our search for spiritual power, our search for a higher power. If you think about most people's objective in life behind making money, behind being successful, it's also a spiritual journey for everyone as well, whether you're religious or whether you are non-religious. There's always some sort of spiritual journey. And what I really like about Vergil and also Dante as well is that they mirror most people in two different ways, and they also are a mirror of Horus and Set, the battling brothers in Egyptian mythology as well. So if you really want to look at them through mythology, you can compare them to that. You can also compare Vergil and Dante to any other duality construct that's present in any other mythologies. They represent different parts of it, but this is how they show up in video gaming. This is how that duality shows up in video gaming. Eventually they're supposed to come together, but these separated brothers have two different objectives, two different outlooks on life. Vergil is more focused on his honor and redeeming himself and his father, and he's also more focused on his demonic heritage, whereas Dante is not. And he knows that this power, his true power, lies in that part of himself. And that part of himself isn't shown to the normal everyday outside world. It's only shown when he's going through trials, tribulations in the demon world. So Vergil embraces this demonic side of himself and the heritage as well. And he wants to redeem his father, Sparta, which is also symbolic Egyptian mythology as well. Sparta is essentially Osiris, and Osiris represents the sixth chakra, which is also represented by the color indigo. Sparta's colors are also indigo as well. So you can also look at them through the lens of this as also. Vergil's color is blue, and Vergil tends to be very noble, very truthful in what he says. So that also represents the fifth chakra as well. So you have to really look at these things through the lens of spirituality to start to decode the symbols present in these video games. And the reason why I say Vergil's demonic side, that's the part where his true power lies. So whenever we're talking about demon or demonic, we're talking about the hidden spiritual element that's present within. So you can substitute different things into that, because obviously a lot of people aren't comfortable with the term demon, but you want to go into the etymology of what the word actually means, because there is a religified definition where it can be seen as a lower entity, and there's also a higher definition and what it truly used to mean, which means higher spiritual beings and beings of intelligence. That's what the term daemon, Daemon, meant. So Vergil is focusing on this daemon side of himself. So think about it in terms of that, especially if you're new to the spiritual circle, because we're not necessarily talking about anything demon or devil worshiping related. This is more so of spiritual development. So get that out of your head. And the next thing I wanted to get into is that this spiritual side of yourself has been trained out of you. This higher part of ourselves that we're all seeking, regardless of whatever path on spirituality that we choose to take, is a part that we don't feel is successful in this world, and that we have to hide. We have to bring that side out of ourselves to life by using it to the fullest. That is our true power. That's exactly what Vergil represents. So Vergil represents that, and he's able to see the truth in that. Like I said, throat chakra, fifth chakra, he's able to see the truth in that, and he walks in that all the time. That's why he never steers away from that, because he knows who he truly is, and he wears that on his sleeve every single day. But Dante, with his color representing red, which also represents the ego, Dante hides that part of himself initially. He's not necessarily ready to embrace it, because he's not in tune with it. He actually resents it. So he chooses to fake a human life. So that's actually what makes Dante, if we want to put them in terms of the mythology, that makes Dante representative of the ego or representative of Set, and it makes Vergil representative of the hero or Horus. So in this story, they are actually flipped. Their roles are actually flipped, where Vergil is the villain for a couple of the games and Dante is the hero for most of the games. Because generally Vergil's trying to do away with things while Dante is trying to preserve, humankind. Ultimately, they have to learn how to work together for any real progress. And when they do learn how to work together, they can surpass their father. So Vergil needing more power and doing whatever it takes to get it, even removing himself from his human nature, was the exact opposite of what Dante wants to do. That's the essence of what our journey is all about. And if you really think about it, most if not all spiritual foundations, even religion, it talks about letting go of the human form, and how temporary the human form is, and how limiting it is, and how it separates you from the divine, it separates you from God, or that it's a test. Living on earth is a test. Islam talks about it, Christianity talks about it, Hinduism talks about it in different ways. So we have to really understand Vergil removing that part of himself when he became V and Urizen. That's symbolic, and that's exactly why his human side was weaker, extremely weaker, and it needed to summon different entities to help him, because he couldn't actually use power on his own. He was slowly disintegrating, and that human part of himself relies on his higher power to survive. That's essentially why if your spirit leaves your body fully, your body can't function without it. Especially once you start learning about astral projection, when you project yourself out of your body, you're projecting a copy of your spirit. But when you die, you're not projecting a copy. The energy body leaves the physical body, and that's essentially why your body can't continue to function without that energy body present. That energy sustains your physical body. Otherwise, your physical body would be unable to move. That's why you see when people are dead, that light in their eyes, when they're recently dead, that light in their eyes disappears. So when Vergil divided himself and divorced himself from humanity, which is a heavy Gnosticism message, a lot of Gnostic principles are present in Devil May Cry 5. So him removing his humanity from himself, and this is exactly why Vergil becomes much, much stronger as Urizen at first, and even when he returns back at the end of the game, spoiler alert, but when he returns back to his true form, Vergil's even stronger than before. And the reason why he's stronger than before is because he has made his human self submit to his higher power, not the other way around. And this is always why I would say it's symbolic. I don't really think it's intentional, but you have to think about it like this. This is always why Vergil's stronger than Dante, or perhaps evenly matched, but he can never truly be defeated by him. And the reason why is simply because of the fact that Vergil is completely balanced. Dante does become balanced as well, but initially Vergil was always stronger. This is why Vergil's overpowered in every video game he's in, even in fighting games, because Vergil has that balance within himself and he submits to his own higher power. So the ego without the support of your higher self does not operate, period. Likewise, your spirit is limited in the physical world without your body. So this is exactly why Vergil splitting himself up didn't work entirely as well, because he was missing the human element, and that's essentially what was keeping him from being able to actually complete his plan in Devil May Cry 5. And that's why he lost to Dante and wasn't able to completely, eradicate his human self. The reason why is because Vergil still has a mission, and the reason why you don't want to be too focused on your higher self, you don't be too focused on spirit. You want to actually focus on your spirit and use your spirit to give you the answers to navigate through human life, rather than completely forgetting about human life altogether. Because when you incarnate, you're here for a reason. So, and that's the way that I look at it too. So your spirit will give you the answers, but you just don't want to completely forget about human life as well. You want to make sure you're taken care of. But at the same time, your main focus should be your spiritual development, should be your spiritual journey too. And the answers will unlock from there. as long as you trust yourself. So Vergil separating completely and running away from his problems essentially actually magnified the issue. And that's why his human side, even though it was dying slowly, came back to try to bring him back. Even though, yes, you could say it's the ego, even though you could say it's weaker than him, but Vergil still had a mission. Whatever mission that they want to give to him in the future games, in the future story, whatever that is, but Vergil still had a role to play. And so that's essentially why the Gnostic message also doesn't support, suicide, or doesn't support, not necessarily participating in this world, but being divorced from the principles of this world. Right. So that's essentially what Vergil, when he came full circle and came to a full realization, that's essentially what he did. This is what allowed him to gain absolute power. And this is exactly why when you fight him, when he's reunited, he's way stronger than he ever was in other games, especially on the harder difficulties. So the point is to not allow your body's humanity to take over. You don't want to be too deep into your spirituality where you're too ethereal and you don't have any foundation, because then there's nothing separating you from being insane. And you also don't want to be too deep into your humanity, because then you become too animalistic. So Vergil removing this weak side of himself wasn't in vain or ignorant, but it was symbolic of the process of balance. And this is also why at the end of the game, you can see that Vergil and Dante, they also start getting along, because Vergil came to that conclusion within himself to balance out his higher self and his ego. And then as a result, he also fixed that relationship with his brother. And you can see in the Egyptian mythology, Horus and Set, even though they are the two battling brothers, eventually they both fuse together. And that's where you get the Horus Set from. The Horus Set entity, where you have one facing the other side, one facing one side. Two sides of the same coin, eventually they both come together. And the human side has limitations, rules, cultures, events, ethics, and morality holding it back. Your true self doesn't need these things and never cared about these things because they only matter in the frame of human existence. But it chooses to engage in them for the sake of whatever story that it wants to play out here. So you're playing out a story here in your life. And whatever you came here for is to enhance that eternal part of you. So you came here under a limited guise, under a limited experience to find something, to engage in something, to complete something and enhance whatever heaven that you have for yourself spiritually. That's what the real test is. That's why they always say that you incarnate and or God created us, and that it was as a test. And to get the answers to the test, you have to go through the human experience to really understand why you're testing in the first place. So you, as Vergil, are fighting to honor and tap into your true self. You're also focusing on your spiritual journey so you can come to that balance and find whatever answers that you might seek here. And the more that you focus on that journey, the more the answers will appear, both physically and spiritually. So that's essentially how Vergil shows us how to gain absolute spiritual power. So you really want to take these Gnostic principles and apply them to your life. You really want to take the principles that and the elements that show up in video games and really start to break them down so you can really see the message that's being given to you underneath the entertaining story. Because with every movie, video game, and TV show, there's the entertaining story and there's also the hidden story behind it. And you want to use the hidden story to enhance yourself, or to even keep yourself vigilant in case it's not necessarily a message that's conducive to your development, because not all hidden messages are positive. So you want to really use the ones that are positive or that could benefit you spiritually and go as far as you possibly can with it. So that is how Vergil shows us how to gain absolute spiritual power. So use that symbol and use it for yourself. Peace.